The Gmod War Doctor's TARDIS has just had a massive update which gave it a complete overhaul and it looks absolutely incredible. This TARDIS was underappreciated when it appeared in the show, and using it in Gmod just makes it so much better, especially seeming a surprising amount of it was never seen in Doctor Who and is completely custom. Hello Fezwearers, this add-on was created 5 years ago, and to be fair to it, even before this update it wasn't too bad, but this overhaul has improved it so much, especially the interior. I will show you every detail from the exterior to the interior to the Easter eggs, and throughout I'll be showing you the biggest changes from the new update. This exterior is very similar to 9th and 10th Doctors, except is more beaten up and slightly tweaked. Even the windows and the signs have this stained look to them. Strangely enough, the lock on this one's a lot more polished and shiny, which just looks a bit out of place, especially when you compare it to this one, which is a lot dirtier. And also the lamp on this one's a lot shorter. And then except for the obvious things like the much darker paint colour, which is disgustingly high quality. I mean, there are very few exteriors which have this level of detail on them. It's pretty much the same as this one. It has two skins, technically, and the only reason I say that is because these skins literally change nothing. At least that's what I initially thought, because what the skins do, if you come over here you can see it. If I go back to skin 1, you can see that it does absolutely nothing. Yep, I was right to begin with. The back of the doors, as seen from the interior, have this surprisingly smooth white wood texture, and it has so many minuscule details, like these screws on the lock, and then these screws on the light bulbs, which is quite literally a bit too good, because who would actually notice if there are the correct amount of screws on the light bulbs or not? Or just screws at all, really. I mean, it's just, the detail put on this is stupid. The windows look pretty much the same as they do from the outside, but you can actually change the colour of the exterior windows, with a feature I feel more add-ons should use, but I'll go over that later on. The only visual proof I have of this TARDIS from before the update is from a video I made over a year ago where I sounded like a 5-year-old. And just remember what it looks like here, because this is what it used to look like. And it had
two skins, the default one and this orangey lit one.
Much like the exterior, the interior has a lot of elements from the 9th and 10th Doctor's TARDIS, as you can probably tell, but it also has some classic Who elements, like the white walls and the round things, as well as the size of the interior. But it also has its fair share of unique stuff, and the recent update has quite literally changed everything. The entire place has been updated and modified, and it just looks insane. I'm running out of words to describe it, but you know. But I'll go over the entire interior, the Easter eggs, the vortex flight, and go into more detail about what this update actually changed, as well as a bunch of other stuff. Theming this interior was only used for a tiny part of one episode in 2013. It wasn't exactly the most detailed thing ever. The whole thing from the rotor upwards was literally never seen in the show, so there's quite a lot of stuff in here that is completely custom made, and are probably some of the best parts, I'm not gonna lie. The basic premise of this interior is to bridge the gap between the classic Who and New Who interiors, if you just forget about the 8th Doctor's one, that is. And this is done by using the coral pillars and the coral console, with the very classic Who walls and roundels, as well as the shape, size and layout of the room. And then for some reason, on every other wall there's an outline for a doorway, but there isn't actually any doors. There's the actual doorway entrance, and then one opposite it over here, which could be intended to lead into a hallway or something like that, but there's also ones on the side, which are literally in front of pillars and just looks terrible. But as far as I can tell, the set and the show didn't have it like this, so it's just kind of like a weird feature to have, I don't know. And although these pillars are from the 9th and 10th Doctor's TARDIS, they are a bit different. The obvious thing is that the top of it is very different, because the seating is much lower in this one compared to that one, and they are much closer to the walls. The shape and positioning of them has been adjusted, and as I said, the seating area is pretty much all custom, which includes the top of these pillars. They look way too thin in my opinion, and because they bend and things, it just doesn't look very structurally sound either. But then again, it is an alien time-space machine that's bigger on the inside, so I guess it's fine. And then the rest of this sort of top half area is completely custom as well, and I think it looks really good, especially for, you know, just the ceiling. It's vaguely similar to the Warrior's TARDIS, with these pipes and wires behind these grates. I just really think it's a good contrast to the sort of more sleek and peaceful look of the classic Who parts, as well as helping with a sort of grittier look of the coral parts. And the wires going from the top of the coral pillars down to the floor and even inside the console also helps with that effect. Also, the blender model of this interior is up on the Steam page, and on that you can see this in just even more detail. The biggest thing that stands out to me is the reflections of everything, especially this ring around the rotor, because it looks kind of dull on the Gmod version. But yeah, this page is linked in the pinned comment, and while you're down there you may as well subscribe. Anyway, the console was definitely the best part, and almost definitely changed the most in the latest update. I mean, just look at this screenshot of the interior from before the update. The pillars are just these twig looking things, the console looks, well, just a bit weird, and the rotor is missing the top part, and although that is more accurate to the show, I much prefer the newer approach they took. But yeah, the details in this console are just The details on this console are just mentally ill, and although it may look the same as the 9th and 10th Doctors, it's surprisingly different. The dimensions are quite unique, and although the designs are similar and they share some controls, the controls are in different locations, and the majority of these controls are actually new. However, the interesting thing here, to me at least, is that a lot of these so-called new controls are just a bunch of random lights, like this entire panel. It's just, well, nothing really. There's like some weird circles, some lights, some wires, and that's about it. But then there's also some scientific equipment, for example this microscope. We're in a time machine, yet I still can't escape year 8 science. My assumption is that the production team on this just threw some stuff together that kind of looks like it works as TARDIS controls, especially seeming this is like a wartime thing. It looking thrown together randomly kind of makes sense. Either way, I can't hide the fact that I do genuinely really like this console design. I mean, this interior as a whole, to be fair. This add-on and recent update in particular has done a very good job of remaking this into Gmod. The vast amount of levers and switches and weird turny things all have animations and sounds, and there's a couple that I really like for absolutely no reason. For instance, the door button, the engine release, the vortex flight, and many more. The materials of the panels are this sort of like metal mesh and weird lit up foil, which I must admit is a weird combo, but works surprisingly well, and I like the fact that you can kind of see through it with this mesh. It just adds another layer of depth and also lets you see all the wires and stuff in there. However, I don't like this random mirror. Why do you need a mirror in a time machine? I also really like that every control that you can have in the TARDIS is here, at least as far as I can tell, because I can't tell you the amount of times I've had to go into the TARDIS menu, then go to the virtual console, and then toggle things like the shields, just so I can go into low health mode and things, because it's just a big hassle. It's so much easier just doing this. Speaking of that, I'll show you the low health mode after I go over this cool Easter egg. This is, I believe, the only Easter egg in this TARDIS, and it's all to do with this stasis cube here. And it's a really random little Easter egg, but I think it's actually quite a cool addition. So I'll show you this, and then I'll go over things like the vortex, the low health mode, the power off mode, and things like that. This is only accessible once per TARDIS, and to activate it, all you need to do is press E on the cube, and it will play what I think is a slowed down version of the macOS booting sound, and then it'll teleport you into this little room here, and it sort of acts like a credits type of room, because the only significant thing in here are these two paintings on the wall, and it just shows a picture of the interior as well as a picture of the exterior. And as for the room itself, it's supposed to be like an ode to the room seen at the end of the 50th, where the Doctors depart and the creator appears, which you can tell from the floor and the walls, but obviously the main thing that gives it away are these roundels here. But that's not why this is such a cool Easter egg, because if I just turn behind me, the one place I haven't looked yet,
in the corner of my eye.
it's literally an Among Us character venting. Like, how much better does it get than that? But on a real note, this is actually one of my favourite little additions to a TARDIS, just because of how random it is, and also because of how little people know about it. And then to leave, you surprisingly don't vent away, which I feel like is a bit of a missed opportunity. Instead, you just press E on the paintings like this is Minecraft or something, and you teleport right back. And then you can never access it again. Oh, and speaking of Minecraft, I'm making quite a big video to do with a Doctor Who mod in that game. I'm not sure when it'll be released, but if this video gets at least 1.5 likes, then I'll be sure to get it out before 2030. Now, if I just go into the vortex, I can show you a variety of things. The roundels start to pulse, and the general lighting dims. And then of course the rotor animation begins as well. And then this TARDIS has the vortex from the 8th Doctor minisode The Night of the Doctor, which also used the same exterior as this, so it kinda makes sense. However, it's really blurry and pixelated, which especially with this new very high quality exterior, it just looks really out of place. But I'd prefer to have this rather than some generic one like the 2013 one, because it gives it a really good sense of distinctiveness. And now if I just pull the handbrake, I can show you two pretty crucial things. First of all, you can see what the TARDIS looks like with no power. Obviously the lights have turned off, and by that I mean everything that produces light no longer produces light. I mean, even these bulbs are turned off, but it's still decently bright in here. You can still see everything pretty clearly, which I'm not sure fits kind of the theme of the War Doctor, but probably the biggest thing here is that the windows on the exterior turn from this orangey fiery kind of color to this just sort of white paper looking thing, which I'll be honest, I think it matches the rest of the exterior really well. And I think this feature should really be applied to literally every TARDIS, because the color from the windows clearly comes from the interior, and when there's no light in the interior, the windows should have no light either. I mean, it just makes sense. And also because those bulbs turned off, this sign up here is also no longer lit up. And then because this now has 6 health, if I turn on the power, you can see what the low health mode looks like. The interior is filled with this sort of bright red colour. However, none of the actual lights like the roundels turn red. Everything stays the exact same. And if I just stop using the handbrake, you can hear it also has the cloister bell. So I've no idea where this sort of red light comes from. It just kind of spawns in with the air, I guess. But the real question here is whether you're going to watch this video on screen. Because quite frankly, I think you should. I'm not biased or anything.